Let's keep those festivities flowing with these fun recipes. Hey guys, welcome back to At the Table. I have two really yummy recipes for you, especially if you are still planning another gathering. So if you have maybe a New Year's gathering that you're going to be attending, I have two recipes that would be really tasty to bring to that. So the first one is a mushroom bruschetta. And I actually was just at a wedding recently where one of my good friends got married, and this was one of the hors d'oeuvres that they were passing around at the cocktail hour. And it was so good, I was like, I need to recreate this. So we've got that recipe, and then the one that we're gonna make first is actually a jalapeno cheddar cheese beer bread. Yes, we do have beer today. I will not be drinking it because we are working, but it's gonna get cooked out, of course, in our recipe anyways. But if you want a beer on the side, go for it when you're cooking. Just, we can't do it at the extension office. So we'll be making that. That actually was at one of my friends brought it to our Friendsgiving. It was a friend's little event, and somebody brought that, and it was so good, so delicious. So we're gonna remake that. That would also, if you still have a gift you need to give for Christmas, even though it's after Christmas, this would be a really good food gift to bring or to give. And also it's really good for any gathering that you might have. So we're actually gonna start with that. Of course, we're dealing with jalapenos. Anytime I deal with jalapenos, I always wear gloves. I'm really guilty for touching my eye or something like that. So you just wanna make sure that your hands do not have that oil on them, because jalapenos, even after you've washed your hands, that oil can still kind of linger and stick around. To me, it's just easier to go ahead and put on gloves. So we are going to start with that. I did go ahead, we need 2 jalapenos for this recipe. I did go ahead and cut some up ahead of time, but we also, and I'll show you 2 ways that we can cut them. I like to lay some on the very top of the bread just to make it look pretty. So you can, and I'll show you how to do this, you can also cut them long ways rather than dicing them, and put a few on the top of your bread just for more aesthetic than anything. I'm gonna set those to the side. But then I have the remainder of one of those jalapenos chopped up. So I always just cut off the top. There might be a better way to do this, but this is just the way I do it. I cut out the middle, and then ideally you could use a spoon or a smaller knife, but I'm lazy and I don't want to grab one of those. So we're just going to do this because it works just as good, just like that. Doesn't always look that pretty. Doesn't always work out that good, but we got lucky today. So what I typically do is just kind of cut on the sides, because that's really where it's attached, is the side of that membrane. And then slowly kind of work it out. And if you lift up, you might be able to avoid those seeds. Now, if you really like spicy stuff, you know somebody who really likes spicy, you could definitely leave those seeds in, and or leave some of the seeds in, maybe of 1 jalapeno or something like that, and that would help to spice it up. This isn't a spicy bread. Honestly, it doesn't really have any heat to it because we do tend to remove those seeds. And so then we're just gonna cut it up just like really anything else. I like to cut it into smaller pieces to start, since we do want it finely chopped to kind of blend in with the bread, and we want it to have a little bit of jalapeno bite in every bite. So always remember our tips and tricks in terms of chopping things up. And remember that we do have classes here at the Extension office. So if you're wanting to fine-tune your cooking skills your chopping skills, your knife skills, anything like that, join us, because we are still trying to have some workshops now that I'm back from maternity leave, and especially with the new year beginning, we'll have even more options for you. So that looks pretty good. I'm gonna add that to our bowl here. And then we can actually get started on the bread. It's very basic. A lot of these ingredients you probably already have in your pantry right now, or your fridge if it's your beer. You could leave the beer out. However, beer, especially for this, is gonna be important for helping it to kind of rise. So really won't be as good if you don't add the beer. Oh, and I was gonna show y'all how to do that. I'll talk about that in a minute. So we'll go ahead and take our break right now, and then we'll come back in just a second and we'll start getting everything into our bowl and mixed.
Eastern North Carolina is a beautiful place where we gladly choose to call home, and we strive to provide the best communications services. STAR is committed to improving communications to all our service areas because we want to improve the communities where we not only work, but also live. STAR Communications. We are neighbors serving neighbors.
If you run a business, you need sales. To get sales, you need customers. To get customers, you need exposure. Let our team of experts craft and produce the perfect video ad to reach your intended audience while making the most of your advertising dollars. Call 1-800-706-6538 or visit starcom.net to contact our Star Communications production team and get your business moving to the next level.
All right, guys, welcome back. I did forget to show you how to make our little rings. So I'm just gonna do it with the top. You're just gonna slice long ways, so keeping the seeds on. So if you wanna do this with, you could do an extra jalapeno just to have a few pieces. When you do that, you're gonna have those little segments. So you can kind of see our little segments here. Of course, since this was the top, it's a little bit different. You'd usually have not as big of segments here. But what I did was I just cut around, or if you have the smaller, which I'll show you in just a second. Of course, rotating, we're watching those fingers. And then you just push it, you can just pop it out. These smaller ones, you're gonna just, really, it's mainly the seed membrane. So I just kind of cut in between those two and then just kind of pushed out with a spoon the seeds. So these are prettier, of course, than that. So we typically want to grab these nice pretty rings rather than these, and we can just chop up these other ones that are just not quite as pretty. Again, this is simply for aesthetic reasons. So if you don't want to worry with all that, you don't have to. But if you want to make it look nice and pretty, you can add that in. All right. Of course, we don't want to leave anything behind, so we're going to use those pieces. All right, so I'm going to take off my gloves here. And what we're going to do next is just add our main ingredient. So this is very simple. We've got our flour, so 3 cups of just regular all-purpose flour. This is why this one's really good for a gift, because it's, you know, is a lot of the ingredients you probably already have. And it's, other than chopping up those jalapenos, it's very, very simple. All right, so we got 3 cups of that. And then we want to do a little bit of baking powder. So we're just going to do 3 teaspoons of our baking powder. Grab our little teaspoon measure. Now, one thing I did want to touch on today, just because we're getting into the new year, we're starting to think through the holidays, or after the holidays, what we want to kind of focus on for 2023. And if you are having those different goals that you're trying to set and make, just make sure that when you're setting goals, you're being realistic on the goals that you are setting, okay? So that makes a big difference. I'm gonna have my little assistant do that later, and we're gonna skip to our sugar. That was salt, so you're gonna need about a teaspoon of salt as well. And then we're doing 1/4 of a teaspoon of sugar. If you can sneak that, Mitchell, but I can't get that open. Sometimes we need a helper in our kitchen for the difficult stuff. And we need the sugar simply because the beer needs something to help it rise. So remember, if you're using that beer, that is important for us. Thank you. All right, so just 1 teaspoon of salt. And then you're gonna add your jalapenos in. And we're gonna stir all of this up, and then the last thing is gonna be adding that cheddar cheese into it. So again, when we're thinking about those resolutions for the new year, make sure that it's something that you can achieve. So a lot of times we tend to choose goals that, I wanna lose 20 pounds by March, or you might not even have an end date. So we also wanna make sure that when we're setting goals, we have some of those a timeline set in place so that we can assess where we are for our goals and make sure we're meeting them. That is often why we tend to not stick to our resolutions or I like to call them goals, to our New Year's resolutions, because we tend to just be very generic, I think I just want to lose weight. Well, how much weight do you want to lose? You want to lose how much by when? So setting those little goals gives you the opportunity to really check in with yourself and make sure that you are meeting the goals along the way, and then also being able to adjust as you go. So adjusting those goals to, well, it's been really difficult. I have a kid now. It's been hard for me to make time to exercise. Instead of trying to exercise 5 days a week, going from no exercise to 5 days, I think I'll start with 2 days a week. And I'll do that for a month, and then maybe I'll do 3 days. So even doing that aspect of adjusting as you go. All right, our last thing is gonna be that beer. So this is just a 12-ounce beer. And you can use any beer that you like, even beer that you don't like, as long as it's, I try to choose a light beer because it doesn't really affect the flavor a whole lot. You could experiment and do different flavors if you want to. It is looking good, smelling good, nice and bubbly. And we're just gonna wait until it is all mixed together. You just wanna have it so that everything's wet, you don't have any dry ingredients. And then what we're gonna do is throw it into our pan. So I'm gonna finish mixing this up. We'll see you guys back in just a second to throw it into our pan.
Honey, do we pay our bill?
What bill?
The Star Communications bill.
No worries, honey. With Star's paperless billing and automatic draft system, I get a notification sent right to my phone. There's no need to be bothered with those paper statements, and our bill is paid on time every month.
Well, that's easy and convenient.
It sure is, honey.
Honey,
Yes, dear.
the bake.
Oh, right.
You're out for an evening on the town. Finally a chance to relax and forget that you left your front door completely unlocked. Fortunately, you just installed a security system from Star Communications. With just your cell phone, you can check on your house, lock it down, light it up, and get back to relaxing.
You forgot to put Buster in his crate.
Unfortunately, we can't help with that. Security and automation from Star Communications. Call today to find out more.
All right, guys, welcome back. So our bread is nice. You can see it's got that nice doughy consistency that we want. It smells absolutely delicious already. So I have a greased bread pan here, bread loaf pan. And I'm just gonna try to gracefully put this in. We will see. It looks so good just with that jalapeno and the cheese that's in there. It really just makes it look so, so pretty. So we'll do that and we'll set that to the side. And then I'm gonna add our pretty chopped, cut up slices of jalapenos, there's the word I'm looking for, to the top here. Now the thing that I like about this, yes, we're eating bread. Yes, a lot of people try to cut that out, but we do have jalapenos in it. We've got a good amount of jalapenos, so it is a way to at least sneak in some vegetables. Y'all know I'm all about trying to sneak in vegetables here and there as best as we can. So it's not the worst bread you could eat, we'll say that. Look at that, I just had just enough. And here we're gonna add a little bit of just melted butter to go right on top. We don't have a nice brush here, surprisingly. So that's why I'm pouring it. If you had a little brush, you could just kind of do that as well. But we did about 3 tablespoons. You can adjust that to taste however you want. So I'm gonna throw this into our oven, and this actually has to cook. Bread takes a while, so it's gonna be about 50 to 60 minutes here. So we'll throw it in. Our oven is on 375. So we're gonna move on over to our second dish that we're making today. And this is one that I said would be a really good appetizer to make. And this was a mushroom bruschetta. So it was just, I had this at that wedding recently and it was so, so good. It sounds really easy to make. One of my friends said she makes it all the time. So I've kind of adjusted a recipe that I found online and adjusted it between that recipe and what she had recommended to do. So what we have first, I have some crostinis over here that I have already baked in the oven. It only takes about 10 minutes at about 350, 375. You just want to keep an eye on those until they're nice and toasted, really. You don't want them to get too brown. So we have those done already. I did that ahead of time. And that is just with really any baguette that you find. I think that was like a Italian bread baguette. So the next thing that we have, I've got my pan on, and I've got 2 different types of mushrooms here. So these are shiitake mushrooms over here, and so they kind of have that funky look to them. And then we have baby Bella mushrooms. Now you can choose any mushrooms that you enjoy. The recipe I found online said cremini and shiitake. All I could really find in our grocery store was the white mushrooms, which are your typical common mushroom, baby Bellas, and shiitake. So I went with the baby Bella and shiitake. They were actually cheaper to get them pre-sliced. So that's what I did because it saves a little bit of time. So, but I am just gonna, because I want them to fit onto our crostinis, I'm just gonna cut them just a little bit more. You could keep them sliced if you've got larger bread slices you're putting them on. But we're just gonna cut these just a little bit. You can see kind of the difference in the way these look. These are a little bit longer. They just have a different mushroom look to them. And different mushrooms have different flavors. So I definitely encourage you to pick at least 2 different ones rather than doing the same flavor. But that will help to kind of liven up your bruschetta recipe. And they're going to be going in the pan at the same time, so it's okay if they kind of get all mixed together. So that's very simple. We're going to cook these up. I'm going to add a little bit of butter to our pan. Yes, we're using butter today. I normally use olive oil. I'm not going to use a lot of butter here. And for instance, the bread is one that we're not going to eat the whole loaf of bread. We're only going to have a little bit. So I don't feel so bad at having that butter with our bread. Here as well, this is an appetizer. You're not having these really big portions of this meal anyways, so just keep that in mind. It's always great to make it a little bit lighter, but we like flavor too. Butter has great flavor, and there is always a time and a place to fit these things in. So we can absolutely still use butter and have a healthy lifestyle, be a healthy person, and you just have to be mindful of the amount of butter we're using and how often we're adding it to our meals. So I'm just gonna throw this in, and we'll get those to kind of cook up. We wanna get that water evaporated out of that as well. While that is cooking, we are going to be adding a little bit of our, this is a boars and cheese blend. So it is, I think I'd picked garlic and herb. You can choose any flavor you want. We're just gonna spread a little bit of this on our crostinis, just like that. So we're gonna take a break. I'm gonna finish spreading, and we'll see you guys back in just a minute.
Let's get out of here.
Protect what matters most in your life with security from Star Communications.
Just because something may work doesn't mean it's right for your business. Let Star Communications' knowledgeable consultants help you customize a hosted voice system that's right for you. Our dedicated experts work with you to understand your business needs and guide you at every step, from choosing and installing services to ongoing maintenance and support. Contact Star today.
All right, guys, welcome back. So our mushrooms are coming along nicely. We've got, you can kind of see the water is already starting to really have evaporated and left those mushrooms, which is what we want. Want them to kind of cook for about 15 minutes. So it does take a little bit. We want them to kind of brown up and look really nice. I haven't added any salt or pepper or seasonings or anything to those yet. Our crostinis are very beautiful. You can see our, this is a boars and cheese spread. Now you could do any cheese spread that you want to do. It doesn't have to be the boars and brand. That's just, this is a garlic and herb boars and cheese. You could do ricotta cheese. That was actually the recipe that we had a ricotta cheese in it. You could do a cream cheese or a cheese blend, anything that sounds good to you, and of course fits within your budget as well. So we'll set those to the side. What we're gonna add next in with our mushrooms is a little bit of herbs and garlic. This is just, of course, to flavor our mushrooms. So what I have here is some rosemary and, like I mentioned, that garlic. So I like to just kind of peel it away from that more hardy stem. Our rosemary is going to be more of those woody herbs. So it's not really a delicate herb. It's got it's on like a hard stem, just like you would think of a stick, something outside, growing outside. We don't typically want to eat that because it is more of that hard kind of texture. And rosemary, the leaves tend to be a little bit more sturdy as well. So typically I chop that up very fine, as you can see here. Another trick for you, if you are trying to pull rosemary from its more hardy stem, you just actually pull it right down and it comes right off the stick for you. So you don't actually have to pick it one by one. Towards the top, it does tend to kind of stick together. So I usually try to pull those pieces apart to just avoid getting any of that hard stem piece in there. You can also, if you don't necessarily want the rosemary in there, chopped up to cook, you could actually just take the whole stem and stick it in there for flavor. Probably would be good to put the lid on just for a few minutes, and that will actually help to give it that flavor without necessarily having the little pieces of the herb in there. If you just really, maybe you have somebody in your family who's funky about textures of certain things. My stepdad is definitely that way with certain textures. So that's an option for you as well. You could just use it more for aroma. So I'm just gonna throw that whole thing in here. And I'm gonna add a little bit of olive oil just because our pan's starting to get a little dry. And I'll kind of scoot that around. We'll let that kind of heat up for a minute. And then up next, I'm gonna do our garlic. So we have 2 cloves of garlic here. And you can use a fancy gadget if you'd like, or you can just chop it up just like I am. I like to use that fresh garlic because it does give it such good flavor. And it tastes so, so yummy. So I just want to touch on, if you do have a New Year's goal, I feel like a lot of people tend to find a New Year's goal or resolution that is related to eating and your diet. When you're looking at some of that, make sure that the diets you're choosing are not restrictive diets, because a lot of times if it completely eliminates a food group, for instance, carbs are a big one that get eliminated. Even fats, if it's a low-fat diet. There's a lot of foods that actually are in those other food groups. All the food groups are important, and there are foods that are in those categories that are really important for our health and really good for our health. For instance, salmon, walnuts, really any nuts, pecans, any of those, peanut butter, all of those are gonna be higher in fat and have that good, healthy fat that we actually want to have in our diet regularly. So we don't want to eliminate fat completely. For carbs, all of our fruits and vegetables are carbs, and they have not just carbohydrates in there, but they have lots of vitamins and minerals that we don't get in other foods. So it's important to not completely eliminate those from your diet. So just keep those things in mind whenever you're choosing, whatever diet you want to do. If you are going that route, just be mindful of, is this diet going to be eliminating whole entire food groups? Is this really a healthy choice for me? And is it going to be a diet that you can sustain for a long time? So keep those things in mind. We want to make sure we're being healthy. We're not just focused on losing weight. So that's it for our mushroom bruschetta. So we are just gonna put this on and I'm just heating the garlic and stuff up until it gets kind of flavorful. We're just gonna put it on our little crostinis and it's ready to eat. So I hope you guys try this. Let me know if you do. I think this would be really good even just on a pizza. You could do the boars and cheese on a pizza crust with the mushrooms on top, would be really yummy. Let me know if you try it. We'll show you guys with the bread and our, of course, further finished product of our bruschetta when we're all done. Y'all have a good one. We'll see you next time.